Towards Understanding with Clayton values being a positive radio program for everyone. As we present today's episode, please accept this little ears warning. Some of the themes discussed may not be suitable for children.
I know I struggled when I lost my mum almost 6 years ago and I was a fully fledged adult. I can't imagine the pain of losing your entire family at a young age in that sort of really growing up era, not even yet properly a teenager. Melissa DePaiva Gibson is going to share that story today. To make matters worse, it was a brutal murder that took out her family. And yet this story is not just one of coping with the depth of pain and hurt, but it is one of forgiveness, it is one of hope, and it's one of healing. As Melissa went back and gave forgiveness to the man who did commit these atrocities, and in doing so helped heal an entire nation. You heard right, an entire nation. How did that happen? Well, we're going to hear that story with Melissa DePaiva Gibson today. Her film featuring her is called Return to Palau, the island nation of Palau. Just before we get stuck into this interview, would you rate, review, would you share this with other people? It helps us get it out to so many more people. We just want to share these stories with as many as we can. Let's chat with Melissa now. Melissa, thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning. Or good afternoon. I'm not sure what day it is.
This is what happens when we do this across the other side of the world. It's wonderful we can chat to you. Now, Melissa, I did mention specifically there that your entire life story is not featured in this film, but a huge part of your story is. Return to Palau is a remarkable film, and I must say for anyone else, I can get a little emotional in films, but I have not cried more than in this film, a documentary on you and your family, and it is because of the remarkable strength and the life that your family has lived. So I'm looking forward to having this conversation. Would you perhaps set it up for us a little bit, because we're going to tell this story that you and your family, when you were a fair bit younger, actually headed to Palau as missionaries. What year was that, and how long were you guys based in Palau?
So that was about 2001, 2002, and we were supposed to be in Palau for 6 years. That was going to be the contract that my dad went under to be the pastor of the church there, and my mom would be a teacher in the Pacific island of Palau, a little paradise island dot in the middle of nowhere.
It really, it certainly is a paradise island is the right way to describe it. So there you were assimilating into the school as well, and making friends, enjoying it. Was it a time for you? You were about 10 years of age at the time. Was it an enjoyable experience heading there as well, or was it a bit of nerves as you headed to the other side of the world?
As kids, when we first got there, I was 8, turning 9. And as kids, I think we were just up for the adventure. I think my dad had worked on us. He really wanted to go because he was an adventurous guy. I don't know how he convinced my mom, but for us kids, he showed us pictures of the beaches, of the island, and all these fun things. And so we were all for it. My brother and I were just having the time of our lives. Our house. We had a view of the ocean, the backyard, and all kinds of different greenery and nature. Coconuts from the tree in the backyard that the local people would come and help pick for us. It was just adventure. We loved everything about living in Palau.
And it seems like that the community certainly loved you guys as well. Certainly from what I've seen and read and watched in the documentary as well, that it certainly was an experience that the local community certainly embraced your family. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, and I didn't know it at the time, but going and having opportunity to talk to people and to revisit with them, they told us how we had just kind of fit their culture. I think in the documentary, the Queen of Palau, she goes by Bilung is her title. Bilung mentions that we really just fit to their culture, and I think that may have come from our Latino Brazilian culture of just being family and welcome and having people over at our house. And, my mom was very much a people person that loved having company over. And my dad was just a friendly, approachable, fun-loving guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I think it was mutual. We really loved that community, and they loved us back.
We know that as working as a pastor, as a missionary there, that your father certainly, brought many people to an understanding of salvation in Jesus and baptism, and so there was certainly a thriving work that was occurring as well. Melissa, we want to talk about the day that did change everything, where one night a gentleman who, as far as we can understand, was sort of full of drugs, came into your house and for whatever reason, whether to steal, whether to just destroy what was occurring, actually killed your brother and your parents, and then took you as a young child. We're not going to go into all of the details of that moment, but would you share with us what occurred as he then took you from the house over the next sort of day or so?
Yeah, so definitely shocking. It was just a couple of days before Christmas when this happened. They had been working on remodeling the principal's house. So the pastor's house was kind of up the road. The principal's house was down the road a little bit. And there weren't a lot of things around or people or other houses. So you almost couldn't see one house from the other, and just a lot of nature in between. So this guy had been around helping with the remodeling. So I don't know if he apparently he had come and talked with my mom at some point, and so it's kind of unclear as to the exact reasons of why everything happened. But yeah, he decided to come to break into our house, and my parents waking up with the noise and seeing that my brother had been attacked, and then him coming in and they're just fighting for life against this guy. For some reason, he decided not to kill me on the spot, and kind of took me to a far off places in the middle of the night. And I was left with no food or water for the next 24 hours or so. And the next night, took me to a ravine and decided to end my life there, and threw me down the ravine. But this miracle of God, he decided that was not the end of my life that day. And he left, of course, and I have no idea how much time actually passed by, and I regained consciousness and was able to climb up this ravine. And that, in my mind, that ravine was hard to climb, but it wasn't until I was able to see that place again that I was really understood the miracle that happened there. It wouldn't have been an easy climb, and especially not for someone having gone through something so shocking and not having eaten or drank for over 24 hours. And I was able to flag down a car that passed by. This was still dark in the middle of the night, and this loving couple that I didn't know was able to pick me up and take me to their house. And another miracle there, their daughter was a police officer. And so they contacted the police and made sure to do all the due process, and so that investigation could still happen but still keep me safe. And took me to the hospital as well to make sure that I was okay. And yeah, the Queen of Palau was contacted, which she had spent lots of time with our family by then. She would come and eat at our house. She would hang out with our family. We would spend time at church and all. So she came to the hospital and was at my bedside for the next few days until I was discharged, and I was taken to another church family's home until my grandparents, who were missionaries in Mexico at the time, came over to Palau. And at that time, my grandma was the first one to come. She was the first one to hear the news and be able to fly over 30 something hours to the other side of the world. That week, in the aftermath, the first few days was just a convoluted mess of being in people's homes and having my grandma come, and just when she came in, it was like a breath of fresh air to me. It's like, I have somebody, I have my family, I have somebody from my family with me. There's a lot that happened that week. I don't know what specific aspects of that part you want to get into.
Yeah, well, I mean, and of course, the whole point is we can't tell the whole documentary either, because that's why it's the whole documentary. It's such a powerful moment.
Right.
But I think that the things I do want to understand and try and ask about too is that, as you did share in the documentary too, that moment with your grandma was, oh well, I'm not alone. But my sense is that even as an adult going through something as horrific as what you had gone through would be absolutely mind spinning. But as a child, to even know what to think, how to feel, how to be, I'd imagine that from that moment with your grandma there, at least you could lean on her, at least you could go to her. Was that sort of the way that you experienced that as well? That, okay, now that's where I can direct what I'm supposed to feel and think, and even if I don't know what that actually is. Yeah.
It was almost like I could just release emotion, because in the shock, you almost don't cry. I don't remember crying until for real, like a crying meltdown, I guess, until my family was there. And yeah, at the funeral, walking into the funeral, there's video and picture, and I was actually crying then as well, because then it felt like the situation that was happening was more real, seeing the caskets. Which the funeral story is another crazy part. I don't know. The community the community in Palau is just so graceful, so gracious towards us. They felt it's a culture of shame and honor, shame culture, and so how they felt after seeing somebody from their country do this to their pastor, the missionary family, they felt a lot of shame. And it's not just the person's family, it's the whole clan, and even beyond that, it was the country in general just felt this collective shame, and they wanted to publicly acknowledge and publicly support. So they held a national funeral at the gymnasium, which is their biggest auditorium on the island. And the president was there. They have a queen, the high chief, which are the cultural leaders, but then they also have a political president. And so the president and the chief and the queen, everybody was there. And he made it a day of mourning, and I believe they even lowered the flags to half mast. And it was a 3 or 4 hour funeral. People from all parts of the community came out to support and to share their condolences and to offer their apologies.
And despite all of that, which was remarkable, right, that this was the entire island and nation was saying, we support and we feel shame, as you mentioned too. It was also an act by your grandmother of essentially forgiveness and stretching out the arm to the person who was the perpetrator, and the mother of the perpetrator was there in shame, sitting on the floor of that gymnasium saying, sort of, I am so sorry. And yet your grandmother brought her up and put her arm around her, and I believe that it was sort of this moment for the entire nation to understand forgiveness was actually a better way than even necessarily shame. Is that the way that you have perceived it as well?
Yeah, that I didn't understand the complexity and the enormity of what was happening in that time, just being there as a 10-year-old. And it wasn't until years later that I understood what she did. But somehow that what she did there planted the seed in my heart to start on this journey of forgiveness. Excuse me. A few days before the funeral, though, my grandma visited the man in jail, and she told the people, some of the people from the church and that were helping to host us. She said, "I want to go to the jail. I want to see him." And they were a little hesitant. They didn't know what she would do, what she would say, what this situation would be like. Why do you want to see this man? He was already in prison. And so they eventually took her and agreed to. And when she got there, she said she didn't rehearse anything. She did not know what she was going to go say. She wanted to put a face to the person who had done this. Was the only reason she wanted to go see him in the beginning. And so when she got there, she looked at him, and his name is Justin. She said, "Justin, your name comes from the word justice. And you will serve the justice of your country and face the consequences of your actions, but I want you to know that we forgive you. And if you give your heart to God, He can transform it." And he was, I believe this was pretty early on. I believe he was still under the effects of drugs and probably still not sleeping. He mentions in the documentary that he had not slept for 5 days prior to this. And, so that was already done. When at the funeral, she got up, also unexpected. My grandma doesn't stick very well to programs. So at the funeral, it was not part of the program when she got up and asked Justin's mother to come up front, who could barely walk. They had to help her up to the stage. And she said, "Here we are, two mothers grieving for lost sons." And she basically urged the country not to hold the sin of this man against the family, which would have been what would happen normally in the culture. And she said that we forgive him, we forgive them, and we hope to see a transformed soul in heaven someday. And yeah, that was a zinger, like a shocker to the whole country. And even the president himself mentions there was no story of forgiveness greater than what they heard that day. And some of our friends in Palau tell us to this day that people still talk about that day.
Yeah. Wow.
And it was very transformative for many people, and it just kind of silenced their fears and their feelings, for lack of a better term. It was a crazy thing that I don't know that you could have really planned that. Really, that's the Holy Spirit working through her at that moment.
Melissa DePaiva Gibson is my guest. Her life, or part of her life story, is featured in this documentary, Return to Palau. We're going to come back in a couple of minutes' time here on Towards Understanding and talk more with Melissa about what occurred in Justin's life, in her life, as she did eventually come back to Palau. She went home from here as a young child back to the States with her family, but the return trip did occur many, many, many years later, and more remarkable God miracles have happened as well. We're going to come back here on Towards Understanding.
Share your brand, your event, your message across 90 Christian radio stations and major cities in Australia and New Zealand by sponsoring Towards Understanding, hosted by Clayton Bielen. More than 210,000 people tune into Towards Understanding each week, and with just one sponsorship, you'll reach this immense engaged audience. Find out more about this exciting and unique opportunity now on the sponsorship page at positivemedia.com.au.
The whole documentary is called Return to Palau. So this is what you actually do, Melissa. The story of this documentary is you actually heading back many, many years later. And I'm guessing in that time, and as it is highlighted in the documentary, that there is a lot to go through as a child, whether it's the terrifying nightmares, whether it's I'm imagining, questioning, even potentially some guilt of why you were left here on earth and your family were taken. were those questions ever part of what you did as you sort of grew up into those teen years and then into your early 20s?
Yeah, the first 2 years, year and a half in the aftermath of losing my family, they were the most difficult. Like you mentioned, the nightmares in the middle of the night, or just waking up so afraid. I was like clockwork, would wake up at 3 a.m. every night and either run to my grandma's bed, or my aunt and uncle had come from where they were to help take care of me and offer more support and just have more people at home. And so I would either go to their room or go to my grandma's room in the middle of the night, and just they would help me back to sleep. In those early years, I functioned as a child in school. I always did well in school, but it's often in those nighttime hours when the sun goes down and it's dark, where everything kind of comes back to me. Even weary of other men who may have had his typical appearance or made have looked like him even slightly, and I didn't want to get close. So those are things that you would probably expect to happen for any young child that has a traumatic experience like that, like flashbacks and things like that. Yeah. But through those nighttime awakenings that I had, I was able to ask lots of deep questions for my age. One particularly that I remember is asking if Justin would be in heaven. And I think that particular one I asked my aunt, and she tells me, this was even like last year or something, as I'm talking to her, she tells me that she really wanted to tell me, no, of course not, he should not be in heaven. This man should just be wiped out. But she felt, of course, I can't tell her that. It's not going to be beneficial to her. And she kind of had this God moment. And what can I tell her? What do I say to her? I don't know if he's going to be in heaven, but she says, if people give their hearts to God, they can be transformed. We don't know. We know the story of Saul, who turned to Paul and was a killer of Christians and became one of the most powerful Christians. And she went in that route. And those were the seeds that we're planting. And my grandma talking about forgiveness, and people sharing the story left and right of what happened. And forgiveness is always a central theme. And I'm hearing that. It's almost like I couldn't imagine a life without forgiveness. Mm. And I can't say that I remember when I forgave him, but it's like a continual process of just thinking more and more about it. And this is just reality, that we forgive, not because he deserved it, but because this is how we live our Christian life. And that was in my 10-year-old mind, how that kind of came together. Yeah. And I was just going to mention in the next few years and going into middle school and high school, things just got progressively better in terms of how I was able to cope. And at that point, it was a lot of people didn't know, since we moved from place to place. A lot of people may not have known the story, my friends, and I didn't feel like I wanted to share with them, because it was, I didn't want them to ask, or I didn't want them to be a shock, or, where are your parents? What did your mom do? And it's a long story. I didn't know what to tell them, but it wasn't until my college years where I was able to then be able to feel more comfortable sharing the story, and even asking more questions about it and finding out what really happened in those days, which is it's been a long journey. It's been a crazy journey.
Yeah. The remarkable part of your entire family has seemed to be that lived experience of forgiveness, and as you said, it's not something that is just, oh yeah, snap your fingers and it's there. It's a journey. It's a choice. It's a constant choice. But it is something that all of you have been doing in that regards. We're going to fast forward through bits and pieces of the story because I do want to make sure I've asked a few questions around the making of this film and your responses to that as well in a moment. But as you get through those teenage years into your 20s, you do end up finding the love of your life, marrying, which is wonderful, and it's a beautiful part of the documentary as well. And, as I said earlier on, I was in tears anyway, then I'm bawling even more as we go through that part of it too, which is wonderful. But what's happening on the other side of the world is exactly back to that question you asked of your aunt. What would happen with this man, Justin? And he in prison in Palau is starting to read the Bible, is wanting to understand more, is that sort of desire and hope of your grandma when she went into that prison and said, I hope that you will be transformed, is starting to happen, even to the point that the local pastor who was pastoring the church where your dad was at feels the call to actually go and work in the prison. As he goes in there, Justin says, I want to be baptized. I want to choose this. And this is what is occurring and is happening in Palau. And he does get baptized. His life does get changed. He does start following Jesus, even in that prison. Can I just ask the question, when you first heard that news and you heard about that life change of Justin, what was your reaction in that moment?
Yeah, so we were just recently married when I heard the news. I received an email, and in the email there was an attachment with his picture in the baptismal tank. And that was the first time I had seen his face again since the last time I saw him in person at the courthouse when I had to identify him and say, yes, it was him, as a 10-year-old. And then the next time that I see his face again is him in the baptismal tank with the pastor. And I just want to mention, by the way, that part of the documentary with Pastor Tiago is his name, when he tells his side of the story and how he came to the country and how he came to give Bible studies to Justin. That part is his interview is one of my favorite ones because he's just so real, so raw. Yeah. And I think a lot of people can relate to how he would feel. Yeah. But yeah, and seeing that email and seeing that picture, it was another one of those moments where, like, I'm not sure which feeling to feel right now, but overall, it's a mixture of a relief and I'm happy for him. In the inside, I'm not rejoicing because I don't have this personal relationship with him, obviously. And I don't keep up with him. It was a surreal moment and feeling, you know what, everything they told me that could happen is happening. Yeah. It was like a confirmation of what God could do in the life of persons if they decided they wanted to change and give their life over to him. And it's just miracle after miracle that happened in the story, and that's just my favorite part. I'm like, this, it was not a good situation, but if this is the outcome, maybe parts of that was worth it.
And I mean, that's a pretty big statement, Melissa. And it's certainly looking through the lens of eternity, more than looking through the lens of a humanity in a regards, if you sort of follow my understanding in that way.
Yeah, and I think the only reason I can say that is because I believe in a God who will transform this world at the end of time when sin is completely eradicated, and we are then able to live with Him for eternity. I don't grieve the loss of my parents and my brother without hope. I grieve them with hope. In knowing that they were doing something for the Lord, that they will live again, and we will get to see them again in perfection. And in knowing that I have that hope of seeing them again, then it becomes worth it that even Justin is saved. Even Justin can be there in perfection and as a new person, and everybody as we were created to be. And it's going to be amazing to see who's there and who we thought would be there but may not be there, and who we never thought would be there and is there. And yeah, I think that's the only reason I can say that statement is that I had the hope of seeing them again. And so it would have been worth it if this was the only way that he would also have been saved.
Yeah. Melissa, as we mentioned, the documentary is called Return to Palau, and so that is what you do, and you get to take your husband with you, which is wonderful, and you head back now for the first time, sort of 15 years or so since you've been there, and I'd imagine all of the, as you express in sort of the documentary too, all of the feelings of what that is. There's the nervousness, and you have a fantastic time of reconnecting with the people that they're so welcoming to you, the joy of being able to share it with your husband as well, and all of that occurs. And I am fast forwarding through some of that as the documentary tells, that you get to a point where actually you weren't sure, but then you decide, actually I'm going to go and speak to Justin as well, and so you and your family go in and actually have a conversation with him. Would you share, I mean, I suppose I might just do a summary and then you can share about what you said and how the reasons you did that. But what I loved is that your grandma got to go in and say again, hey, remember 15 years ago I told you that your life could be transformed, and I'm so glad that it is being transformed by Jesus. Your husband got to pray for him, which I would imagine is a mind-blowing occurrence as a husband myself, to actually pray for the man who has hurt my wife so much. It was a big step. But then you also decided you would say something to Justin after he'd also shared great remorse to the family. Could you share what that moment for you?
I think in those deep conversations that I had as a kid in the early aftermath, and my grandma explained to me a lot of the reality of a cosmic conflict that happens. And I know that's a big term that some people may not be aware of or may not have heard of before. In the Bible, where you see God and Satan, and there's just this cosmic conflict between those two powers, which I came to learn from her that it's not an issue of power, because God is all powerful, and if He really needed to, He could have wiped out sin a long time ago, but that wouldn't have done justice to His character. And so for countless reasons that are beyond us, things just have to play out so that His character can be rightly seen in the universe. And so it's an issue of character between good and evil. And in learning that, I can't say that I'm a better person than Justin, because sin is sin, and because my sins are not killing somebody, and his was. I was convicted that was a bad decision, and it shouldn't be. Of course, he's facing consequences of those decisions, but it shouldn't take over your whole life and be something that holds you down for the rest of your life if you so choose to remove yourself from that situation. I think in learning this fight between good and evil, that things happen beyond our control, beyond our reason, beyond I think C.S. Lewis mentions that every square inch of the universe is claimed by God or counterclaimed by Satan. And so the circumstances happen, poor choices, freedom of will, and freedom of choice, and just all these things put together created the situation. And now here we are years later, and Justin is a transformed man. So who am I to say that I am better than him? Me having made poor decisions myself. And so that's just a setup for what my mind was going around. And in that moment, I said, Justin, we're no better than you, in the eyes of the whole picture of human existence. We're no better than you. But I do hope to see you one day in heaven with my parents and my brother. And of course, I broke down crying at that point because it was just too much emotion for one time. But that was all I said. And I guess that was my way of saying that I had forgiven him.
Yeah. A remarkable moment. And look, there's so many others that we haven't even touched off on in the documentary as well, of ultimately it's a testament to the power of what God can do in people if they choose to follow him. And as mentioned, shines through your family in remarkable ways, Melissa. A couple of questions I just want to finish our time with. One is, I suppose, the reliving of so much of this when you make a documentary, and even, you do an interview with this guy over the other side of the world, and having to relive some of this time. Is that difficult? Is it joyous memories? Is it purposeful? I suppose I'm just wondering what that does for you. How much does that cost you, I suppose, to relive these? At first it cost a lot because it felt like the story, the only good ending to the story was that I was okay and I am able to continue in life, and I've been successful even in the situation. But after his baptism, the story just got better, and I just felt like it was transformative to every time that we would share it. Somebody would say, this really touched me, or this really transformed me. And that's what keeps me going, because I know that God, of course, it was not his will that this would happen, but he uses our suffering. God never wastes our suffering. And so in this whole situation, he was able to bring so many more people to God. And my grandparents told me so many times, in the death of my parents and my brother, they probably ministered to thousands, millions more people than they would have ever been able to in real life. And so in that sense, I feel like it's just worth it. It's a story with a good ending. The beginning is not great, but it's just the power that it has to show people what God can do to transform a life, and the journey that he can take you on to forgive anybody, to forgive any kind of circumstance. It's just worth it. So now I can share the story with hope, and I can share the story with joy for what God has done. I love that. Final question from me, Melissa, is around the idea of whether someone's watching this documentary, Return to Palau, or maybe hearing a story now, and you perhaps sort of wrapped it a little bit there, but somebody who has heard that and gone, okay, it's touched me, I need to step forward towards this God, this understanding of a God who loves me more. What would be your encouragement to them? Maybe they've experienced something that they thought they could never forgive. Maybe they've gone through such trauma or tragedy as well. What would be your encouragement to somebody who is thinking, okay, I need to change, and I want to trust this God who Melissa says loves me? What should they do?
Yeah, I don't think there's a prescriptive medicine or prescriptive potion that you can take to say this is what you should do. I think it's you just start on the journey and say, God, I want to go on this journey. I don't know how I'm going to get there or what means, but I just want to start somewhere. And I think if you allow God to start moving and working in little bits and pieces, he will orchestrate that in the most beautiful symphony that he can orchestrate, and he will give you opportunities to practice what we're talking about, opportunity to practice faith, opportunity to practice forgiveness, and it's not a day night thing, that I decide today that I've forgiven and then tonight I feel great about it. I can say many times that I've had ups and downs, and sometimes you just have to remind yourself that you have forgiven and forgive again in your heart, or forgive whatever the situation is. I think the biggest thing for me was being intentional in spending time with God, and just allowing God to have your raw emotions and your raw feelings, because he can handle them. And he doesn't just want he wants our authenticity. he wants us to say, well, hey, I'm struggling with this. I can't forgive this person, but just start changing me little by little. And I think he can do that.
Wonderful. Melissa, thank you. You have given us so much of your time. We wish you all the best with this film, Return to Palau. This story, and there's so many little nuggets we haven't even talked about in there, but I'm sure that people, as they watch your story, will hopefully, exactly as you described, lead to themselves to that point as well. And we just thank you so much for your time with us today.
Of course. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Melissa DePaiva Gibson has been my guest. She is the person who is featured in this story, Return to Palau, here on Towards Understanding.